And the embattled leader, Muammar Gaddafi, has blamed Al-Qaeda and his youth's high on drugs for causing trouble in his country. In his second address to the nation since the uprising began, he continued to sound defiant but spoke via phone rather than in vision. This, as there was heavy fighting in the town of AlJazeera, just 50 kilometers west of the capital, Tripoli, between opposition forces and those loyal to Gaddafi. But further to the west, police and soldiers have reportedly deserted the Libyan leader in the town of Zuwara. The opposition there is now in control. So while Libya's capital, Tripoli, remains on lockdown, more video is emerging of just how much control Muammar Gaddafi has lost in the east of the country. Jubilant protesters have been showing the media what they've managed to seize in the city of Shahat. That's a region with a long history of resistance. Here's Dan Nolan.
Sitting atop seized army tanks, firing automatic weapons. These men are celebrating a war that hasn't yet been won. Like most of Libya's eastern cities, Shahat is now controlled by the people. Some are giddy with their newfound freedom, joyriding in tanks that once belonged to Muammar Gaddafi's regime.
These are ruins from the previous terrorist regime. This is what Gaddafi used to kill our children.
Shahat is in a province of Libya called Green Mountain, famous for its resistance led by Omar al-Mukhtar against Italian occupation a century ago. Media reports now emerging from Shahat and nearby Al-Baida say peaceful protests on February 17 were met with live fire from Gaddafi's troops. Sympathetic soldiers are said to have opened up military warehouses to help civilians defend themselves, creating a new chapter in Green Mountain's history of resistance. Further east in Tobruk, video from the local airport shows the intensity of battles that raged here. Hundreds of bullet casings lie on the ground, while inside, blood-stained floors show a passenger terminal that became a war zone.
Thank God we won. They had weapons, but we had stones. God helped and we won. All Arabs must do something to stop this Goliath. Where is the United Nations?
Another tank sits on the Tobruk airport runway, an apparent attempt to stop Colonel Gaddafi sending more forces in to take up a fight, but in the east of Libya, he appears to be losing. Dan Nolan, Al Jazeera.
Well, viewers have been sending in videos from Libya directly to Al Jazeera, and Emike Amudu has more on that from our web desk. Emike.
Yes, Dareen, citizen journalism is playing a big role in getting information out of Libya, giving us an insight into what's taking place in areas that professional journalists can't get into right now. Here's a selection of what our viewers have sent us. Fatima is 8 years old, lying injured in Misrata's Central Hospital, we're told. She says she was shot in the leg in front of her house, which is in the Grat area. We've heard that fighting is taking place between pro and anti-government groups around or in the town. The video was uploaded within hours of those reports. Is she a victim of that violence? It's hard to tell, but piece that together with this next one, and the picture being painted is that there is a battle going on for the town. Government opponents claim to have taken over central Misrata about a day ago. This new video claims to show members of that camp taking over the airport. They're shouting, "God is great." So as journalists do start arriving in Libya, what will they find? Well, late on Wednesday night, tweets and audio messages from Tripoli were filled with claims that the government had teams of people going around cleaning up graffiti and areas where fights had taken place before the journalists arrived. Well, a Libya analyst with reliable contacts in Tripoli says that's also what he's been hearing.
I've been hearing exactly that. In fact, just a few hours ago, I got a couple of phone calls from people in Tripoli or people who have friends and family and people even who work still for government, for public services, all reporting that the regime is preparing for this opening to the external media. In fact, they believe they're orchestrating it. This is their counter response to the media onslaught on them, and they want to reproduce it to serve their goal. Their goal is to hide, conceal any signs, any evidence that any massacres or violations of human rights have taken place.
Well, that's it from the web desk. Back to you, Dari.
Thank you very much, Emike. Well, let's take a look now at developments resulting from other protests that are taking place right across the Middle East. In Yemen, a pro-independence march in the south ended in tragedy when an activist was killed by a landmine. It happened in Laudar in the southern Abyan province, which is a stronghold of the secessionist movement. Egypt's former information minister is facing corruption charges. Anas al-Fiki is the fourth member of Hosni Mubarak's government to be arrested. The former state broadcasting chief, Osama al-Sheikh, has also been detained, and both have been banned from leaving the country. Rescuers in New Zealand are losing hope of finding any more earthquake survivors in the city of Christchurch. A government minister says the death toll now stands at 113 people and more than 220 are listed as missing. More than 24 hours have passed with no further signs of life from under the rubble. Andrew Thomas has the latest from New Zealand.
It's been 3 days now, almost to the minute, since the earthquake hit, and it's been almost 48 hours now since anybody was pulled alive from the rubble. So hope, I'm afraid, diminishing. Problems too, though, for this city on a wider scale, going right out from the centre of Christchurch. There's talk that the whole commercial centre of Christchurch will have to be almost literally moved. Obviously the buildings will stay where they are, but all the businesses, all the people who work in those will have to relocate probably for some months, because that is the extent of the damage in the city centre. Meanwhile, trying to restore power and water to the city, incredibly tricky. In the last hour, there was a briefing by the electricity company. They said all 4 of their mega cables to one town, the town of Brighton, were badly damaged in this earthquake. They've given up trying to repair those cables underground or replace them. Instead, they've got to put up a 4-kilometre long overhead wire to that town. That would normally take 8 weeks. They're trying to do that in 1 week. That's just a small example of the sorts of logistical headaches that the authorities have here, as well as looking still for more survivors. Let's hope there still are some.
Julian Assange has condemned the extradition system as unfair. The WikiLeaks founder says he'll appeal after a British judge ruled he can be extradited to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning about rape and sexual assault. Tim Friend reports.
This decision is a major blow for Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. The whistleblower who revealed secret US embassy cables to Washington's anger and embarrassment must now face the possibility of a trial on sex charges in Sweden. He says they're politically motivated and designed to smear his reputation. He'll appeal and could still avoid extradition.
What we saw today at Belmarsh was a rubber stamping process that comes as no surprise, but is nonetheless wrong. A rubber stamping process that is a result of a European arrest warrant system run amok.
His defence team say that Assange will not get a fair trial in Sweden, but the UK judge said there was no evidence to support that.
There's still a concern amongst Julian Assange's supporters, like these people here, that he could eventually end up being taken to the United States, where many people, US